concerned, the odds on the next star to land in Toronto. Drew Holiday at plus 900. If you're not familiar with betting, that essentially means you have to bet $100 to win $900. So Drew Holiday, I should at least start at the 1,000. So Jamal Murray is plus 1,000.
Canadian.
Drew Holiday is plus 900. DeMar DeRozan is plus 800. Zach LaVine is plus 600, tied with Giannis Antetokounmpo at plus 600. But the shortest odds for the next star to land in Toronto, 66666. Domantas Sabonis at plus 500. That's what we're doing now when it comes to the and I asked straight up, where is Bovada getting this stuff? I think the idea is that they're hearing things, or is it just a bit random? I feel like it's a little bit of both. But Domantas Sabonis in Toronto, and I have no clue what in the world. You know, it's so funny because a lot of us said, this is before the Kings got DeMar DeRozan, but we didn't think DeMar DeRozan would work. And for a large part, it didn't. Not that we saw a bunch of games, but it didn't work. We also were saying no to Brandon Ingram because we didn't know how that would work particularly well. But funny enough, a year or two later, Domantas Sabonis with the best odds now, bet 100 to win 500. Those aren't incredible odds. It's not as if they truly feel like Domantas Sabonis is going to go there. But when you have a plus 1,800 for Kevin Durant, plus 2,500 for Devin Booker, and then you get to the shorter odds, you got Giannis at plus 600, Domantas Sabonis at plus 500. It means something. And all of a sudden, he's now going to go to Toronto to play with Brandon Ingram. And I still don't know how that works. I don't know off the top of my head. And this just came out this morning, I believe, or late last night. When you look at the Kings and the Raptors, what the Raptors have, you know, the conversations we just had as far as what the Kings should do in the blow-up conversation, I don't know if the Raptors, if this were to actually happen, it's that $43.6 million. Okay, well, you have Emmanuel Quickley at 32 a year, which feels like a little pricey.
He was their best offensive player last year.
I hear you. I don't know how Emmanuel Quickley and Malik Monk exist on the same squad.
Let's not worry about that because
I'm just saying, money-wise, there's only the Raptors. It's going to be a conversation where they got to move somebody to move that 43 mil to match the 43 million.
Well, yeah, it's going to be either Quickley or a combination of Barrett and one of those bench players making a lot of money.
So Barrett, Jakob Poeltl, and a bunch of picks, or Grady Dick and a couple less picks?
Yeah.
Is that what we're doing?
Well, yeah, but again, if you're making that move for Sabonis specifically, because I do think it's funny that all the people on the list are just Kings. They're just like, if anyone's going to move stars,
it's going to be that trash team in Sacramento.
Well, not that trash team. It's the only way multiple, like, I don't think that, I don't know for sure. I don't think that many stars are going to get moved, but if it's not Giannis, it's then going to be whoever Giannis goes to, the star they're giving up getting rerouted to another team is probably the best odds. But in the meantime, everyone's just like, well, Sacramento might blow it all up. Sure, why not?
Yeah, so out of the 4 best odds for who Bovada thinks the next star will be to land in Toronto, 3 of them are currently on the Sacramento Kings. And the other one is Giannis. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, so it'd have to be some combination of Quickley, Barrett, and Jakob Poeltl. I mean, I'm just assuming that if they want to make that all-in move, they want to keep Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram, just because that's the whole point of...
Exactly. That's their big 3.
Yeah, so yeah, it's probably would be. By the way, even if it's Zach LaVine, right? You could make the case of Zach LaVine getting traded for R.J. Barrett and Jakob Pertl, or R.J. Barrett and Abaji, and the Kings get a trade exception or something. I don't know. Like, you could make that case no matter who it is.
I'm open. I'm willing,
because you would assume Toronto wants to keep the big three of Quickly, Ingram, and Scotty Barnes together if they're making an all-in move.
Yeah, I would be very interested in moving off of one of the big contracts. Zach LaVine, Domantas Sabonis. I would probably rather move Zach LaVine simply because he hasn't been out here as long. And yeah, you go. I think if you are the Raptors, they're literally watching what happens when you don't have a point guard. So I think the Raptors would say, we'll give you RJ Barrett and a little bit more versus giving you Emmanuel Quickly, because I think they still need a maestro. Well, you move Emmanuel Quickly and add Zach LaVine. Now the Raptors are a version of the Sacramento Kings in Toronto with no point guard.
Well, Quickly's also just better is the thing, right? Like, when they made that trade, I think everyone thought RJ was going to be the key piece of the OG Anunoby trade. It's been Emmanuel Quickly. Like, you could make the case that the Knicks would have been better off just keeping Emmanuel Quickly. Like, RJ Barrett, whatever, he's a fine player. I think you could make the argument the Knicks might have been better off just keeping Emmanuel Quickly, because he offensively is very, very good.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, you can't do that because Knicks went to the playoffs, and the only team that is allowed to have regrets is the Sacramento Kings. Let's not forget that. That's the only team that's made a mistake. Okay, the Clippers didn't make a mistake moving SGA because they made the playoffs.
Okay, well, I don't want to be that guy, but I also think we're being a little bit hindsight 2020 on this SGA Paul George trade.
How?
Because people think of it like they gave up all these picks and SGA. First of all, the Thunder didn't even believe SGA the whole way through. They tried to trade SGA along the way. 2, it wasn't just for Paul George. They got Kawhi Leonard and Paul George in exchange for all of that stuff, because Kawhi wasn't going to sign with them if not for making that trade. So if you think of it like they got the package deal to make that trade, you give up all the draft picks you want if it means you also get Kawhi Leonard in his prime coming off a finals MVP.
I hear what you're trying to do, but I'm just literally saying what the trade was.
It wasn't great in hindsight for the Clippers, but saying like the Clippers were so dumb for doing it is very hindsight 2020.
But that is my whole point about the Kings as well. They didn't even get to a finals, the Clippers. They didn't even get to a finals. The Kings, they made a move to get, now they wanted to be in the playoffs more than 1 year, but the Kings made a move to get to the play. You could argue it was a bad move, but you could also argue that they did achieve what they wanted to achieve. It was just a dumb level of achievement. We want to make a move to make the playoffs. Again, they assumed that they would be in the playoffs not just for 1 year, right? And if Big Luka doesn't flop on Malik, maybe they make the playoffs 2 years in a row. The Clippers made a move. And I get it. And maybe to your point, Kyle, that's why they don't get as much flack as the Kings. But they made a move to win the championship. They didn't even get to a finals. They have been, if you were to compare, I think it's really close between who tricked off. It's going to be, and when I say it's close between who tricked off their trade worse between the Clippers and the Kings, I'm talking relatively speaking. So I'm not talking about the fact that the Clippers make the playoffs. You have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. You're supposed to make the playoffs. Then you added James Harden.
Yeah.
You're supposed to make the playoffs.
Sure, and I would also make the point, like, yes, the Clippers won 4 playoff series with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard together. They made 1 conference finals. They made it to the second round in the bubble, which honestly, I think they would have won the championship had the league not shut down.
Didn't they blow a 3-1 lead at one point?
Yeah, in the bubble against the Nuggets, because they all hated each other, according to Lou Williams, because they all hated each other and they just wanted to go home. But it's also, And the Beam team probably felt better than a lot of that run did for Clippers fans, too, because the Clippers fans had to deal with the Kawhi injury stuff for so long. I'm sure it felt just as good, but it also took 6 years for the Thunder to finally cash in on the SGA chip versus the Tyrese trade. That happened immediately. Like within 2 years, you knew, we kind of just messed this thing up. It wasn't a slow burn in the same way that the Thunder one was.
Yeah, and I understand what people will say when it comes to, well, the Clippers still got this. Meanwhile, the Kings didn't do anything. But again, the same thing I've continued to say, it's about what the Kings did post-trade, not the actual trade, versus I think with the Clippers, it kind of just was the actual trade. And that's why I would say, hey, both bad situations, but we talk about, not just in Sacramento, I think everybody talks about the Kings more. I think people understand LA will always be okay, right? Even if you're the Clippers, I feel like people, funny enough, bag on the Kings more because their thought process is, you're Sacramento. You're not going to get a lot of opportunities like this. The Clippers didn't make it work, and the Clippers, a lot of people think they're cursed. The Clippers didn't make it work, but they're LA. They go out, they're able to get James Harden. They're always, they got Steve Ballmer, who has more money than God. They're always going to have an opportunity, whereas it's a tougher blow for the Kings because they're not. 11 o'clock coming up next. Who is and I see somebody got it right on the Sac Chat. Who is the young wing in the Western Conference who got bounced out of the rotation that we are trying to trade for today? Alan South.